Hello, hello to everybody online. That's smooth, huh? Okay, Lech, well, let's jump in. Today we get to meet Yehovah's friend. Okay, it says in James 2, the scripture is fulfilled. It says, Abraham believed God and it was counted to him as righteousness, and he was called a friend of God. Again in Isaiah we read this, but you, Israel, my servant, Jacob, whom I have chosen, the descendants of Abraham, my friend. What a statement. 2 Chronicles 20. Did you not, our God, drive out the inhabitants of this land before your people Israel and give it forever to the descendants of Abraham, your friend? What a remarkable thing to be known as. Clearly, Abraham had a very special relationship with Yehovah. But why Abraham? It says in Genesis 26, I will multiply your offspring as the stars of heaven and will give to your offspring all these lands, and in your offspring all the nations of the earth shall be blessed. Because Abraham obeyed my voice, Shemad, and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws. Because Abraham, Shemad, Yehovah's voice. Know how Yeshua connected faith and doing with being his friend. He said, this is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. Greater love is no one than this, that somebody lay down his life for his friends. Then he says, you are my friends if you do what I command you. So, he says, you are my friend if you do what I command you. If you hearken to my voice. If you shema. And then in Malachi 3:6 we read this. For I, Yehovah, do not change. So that statement is just as true today as it was at any time in history. Hebrews 13:8. Yeshua HaMashiach is the same yesterday, today, and forever. So that same statement applies. If you do what I command you, then you are my friend. Is that you? The world is full of people who refuse to Shema Yehovah. Churches are full of people who refuse to Shema Yehovah. Torah-keeping fellowships are full of people who refuse to Shema Yehovah. So many people professing to love Yehovah with all their heart get on with making a good show of it, then their faith is tested. They don't like what is asked of them, and what is truly in their hearts is manifested as they refuse to Shema. As we'll see, Abraham was not perfect, for he Shema Yehovah. It says in Romans 10, he's known as the father of faith, isn't he? It says, faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. Or to render it more accurately, faith comes by shemaing, and shemaing by the word, shemaing rather by the word of God. And what did he say? You are my friend if you do what I command you, if you hearken to my voice, if you shema. That's something that is quite an incredible statement, isn't it? If you shema, then you can be sure that the Lord of all creation considers you as his friend. Let that sink in. When I was doing this, I had to sit and I had to think about that a bit, because I just thought, that's incredible. All those people who choose to hearken to his voice, respond to his word, by shemaing it. He says, you are my friend. That's amazing, isn't it? You want to be anybody's friend. Abraham doesn't appear to be a superstar, and he seems very much in need of Yehovah to sort his life out. And a poor rather. There is hope for us all. He shemad, he had faith. When Yehovah spoke, he just did it. He didn't say, oh, I'm not quite there yet. Did he? How did he respond when he was tested? Genesis 22. After these things, God tested Abraham and said to him, Abraham, and he said, here I am. He said, take your son, your only son, Yachid, as in your special son, not your only begotten, Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I shall tell you. And also, by the way, take your son sounds a bit harsh in English and a bit abrupt. In Hebrew, however, the phrasing is softer. Instead of now, take your son, it's please, it's nah. Take thy son, The picture is somebody placing their hand on your shoulder, reassuring you that everything is going to be okay, and saying, it'll be okay, just trust me. So, he says, Lech lecha el eretz ha-Moriah. Go away for yourself to the Moriah area. From our parsha, which is called Lech lecha, we see that it was the very first phrase that Yehovah ever uttered to him. On both journeys, the first journey was to tell him to leave his home and go and travel to Canaan. This journey was to take his son to the mountains of Moriah. Both journeys took faith. And what do we see? Abraham rose up early in the morning and saddled his ass and took 2 of his young men with him, and Isaac his son clave the wood for the burnt offering, rose up and went unto the place of which God had told him. So he not only listened, he not only heard, he not only obeyed, he responded quickly with enthusiasm. He rose up early. I think this is like really key. Then on the 3rd day, Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place afar off. And Abraham said to his young men, abide here with the ass, and I and the lad will go yonder and worship and come again to you. Will come again to you. He had faith. He knew that what Yehovah had promised. He knew that Yehovah could raise his son from the dead if necessary to fulfill his promise. He trusted Yehovah. In fact, in Hebrews 11 it says, by faith Abraham, when he was tried, offered up Isaac, and he that had received the promises offered up his only son, his Yachid, of whom it was said that in Isaac shall thy seed be blessed, accounting that God was able to raise him up even from the dead, from whence also he received him in a figure. He didn't have to figure it out. He didn't have to think about it. He didn't have to weigh it all up. And Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering, he laid it upon Isaac his son, and he took the fire in his hand and a knife, and they both of them went together. And obviously this is a picture of something that was to come. And from later on our parsha we see another example of what it means to Shema. Genesis 17. God said to Abraham, thou shalt keep my covenant, therefore, thou and thy seed after thee in their generations. This is my covenant which ye shall keep between me and you and thy seed after thee. Every man-child among you shall be circumcised. Note, Yehovah offered no explanation. There was no bargaining. It was just do it. This is faith. And in Genesis 17, when he had finished talking with him, God went up from Abraham. What did he do? Did he say, whoa, whoa, one step at a time, Lord? Did he wonder how he could get out of it? Verse 23. Abraham took Ishmael his son and all those born in his house or bought with his money, every male among the men of Abraham's house. He circumcised the flesh of their foreskins that very day as God had said to him. That very day as God had said to him. He didn't mess about. He shemad Yehovah. If the Lord said it, he did it. He hearkened to the voice and he obeyed. Abraham was 99 years old and he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. And Ishmael, his son, was 13 years old and he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. So for all those people who say, oh no, it's supposed to be happening on your 8th day, that's when you get it done. Hang on a minute. Abraham was 99. That very day, Abraham and his son Ishmael were circumcised, and all the men of his house. Those born in the house and those bought with money from a foreigner were circumcised with him. That very day. So what did he say? Right, everybody over here, drop your pants whilst wielding a short, stubby knife. He must have been an amazing bloke, mustn't he? For all them people to go, okay, what are we doing? Cool. He must have held enormous influence over those who knew him. Are you Abraham's seed? If you be Christ, then you are Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise. Are you Messiahs? Do you belong to Yeshua? If you're Messiahs, then you are Abraham's seed and you are saved by faith. Your faith is accounted to you as righteousness. Faith leads to obedience. Obedience leads to circumcision. I'm not messing about and hanging about either. The Lord said it. This is important. I will do it. By faith, Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out of the place which he would receive as an inheritance, and he went out not knowing where he was going. We can read that and it can just kind of like pass us by and we can just think, okay, yeah, because we know the whole story.
He didn't have a clue. He didn't know where he was going. The Lord said, leave, and he left. Just think about that. His whole life that he made for himself. He didn't leave as a young man. Faith then is a quality of response to Yehovah that is expressed in trust, reliance, commitment, and obedience. Faith is not about questioning Yehovah's word. It is about recognizing that Yehovah is who he says he is and acting accordingly. Yehovah says, do it his way. He's king of all creation. I'm definitely going to do it his way. There's not even a question. This is how it happens. He has said it. Are you like Abraham? You are Israel, my servant, Jacob, whom I've chosen, the descendants of Abraham, my friend. The Lord says, you are my friends if you do whatever I command you. Is this us? Genesis 26, I will multiply your offspring as the stars of heaven and will give to your offspring all these lands, and in your offspring all the nations of the earth shall be blessed. Because Abraham shemad my voice, kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws. Are you the seed of Abraham? From the Genesis 18 account, just before the account of Sodom and Gomorrah, the Lord said, shall I hide from Abraham the thing which I am to do, seeing that Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him? For I know him, Yada, that he will command Yetzaveh, his children and his household after him, and they shall keep Shema, the way of the Lord, to do justice and judgment, that the Lord may bring upon Abraham that which he had spoken of him. He says, I know him. 1 Corinthians 8:3 says, if anyone loves God, he is known by God. Abraham loved God. Are you the seed of Abraham? There's a lot of people who profess to love the Lord, but sadly he's going to say, I don't know you. Depart from me, I never knew you. And it says he will command Yetzaveh, his children and his household after him. Command Yetzaveh. This is a future tense version of the Hebrew verb root zavah. Zadeh, vav, hey. The implication of the Hebrew is not so much to teach or command people, but to bring people into union, communion with Yehovah. Not so much through any type of formal verbalization, proclamation, as through living a Shema lifestyle before the world. Teaching people by living it, by doing it. Zavah is to provide direction for the trail. We've seen this before. So Abraham will show the way by walking in it. He was 75 when he was called. How does it begin? Well, Yehovah calls us in much the same way he called Abraham. Yehovah makes us suddenly aware of both his existence and our need to respond to him. Many are called in this manner, but few are chosen. It all depends on our response to the call. Few people love the Lord. Sad that, isn't it? They don't. Then the adventure begins with a departure. It has to cost us something in order for us to fully appreciate its worth. I thought this was interesting from William Bullock Sr. Things to leave behind. Destructive behavior pattern, a cynical worldview, garbage philosophy, ungrateful attitude, doubts, excuses, self-pity, or arrogant self-righteousness, anger or fear, a sense of self-importance, or a comfortable physical or emotional crutch. Then the focus becomes not so much what we've left behind, but where we are going. It's interesting, isn't it, when people, you can go to church and your life can be exactly the same. You can even join the choir and your life can be exactly the same. But when you come to the Lord in complete surrender to walk in his ways, then wow, nothing is the same. And a lot of people find themselves going, wow, I don't even know what anything is anymore. Oops. Whatever we left behind, however critical to our self-concept it seemed at the time we were called to leave, will quickly start to seem like rubbish in comparison to what we've begun to taste. Hoorah. Paul said this, didn't he? Indeed, I count everything as lost because of the surpassing worth of knowing Yeshua HaMashiach, my Lord. For his sake I have suffered the loss of all things, and I count them as rubbish or dung in order that I may gain Christ. John 8, if the Son therefore shall make you free, you shall be free indeed. Then you get a uniquely engineered obstacle course, faith-shaking life challenges designed to purify our hearts and renew our minds. James 1, 2-4 says this, count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds. That's a statement, isn't it? For you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And then he says, and let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. Romans 5, 1-5. Therefore, since we have been justified by faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Yeshua HaMashiach. Through him we have also obtained access by faith into this grace in which we stand, and we rejoice in hope of the glory of God. Not only that, but we rejoice in our sufferings. Let that sink in. Knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope. And hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us. So rejoice in hope. Be patient in tribulation, in trials, in times of testing, and be constant in prayer. Consider the words that we've just read. Steadfastness. The testing of your faith produces steadfastness. Steadfastness that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. Then we have endurance. But we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance. Endurance produces character, and character produces hope. Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds, and rejoice. When we read of Abraham's life story, we're not going to read of, he gets told he's going to be blessed. I'm going to bless you, Abraham. We don't then read, and then Abraham went on his way, and everything was cushy. And then he went a bit further, and things got better, and everything was brilliant and marvelous, and he just couldn't help smiling. Doesn't quite work like that. 1 Corinthians 10:13, no temptation has overtaken you that is not common to man. God is faithful, and he will not let you be tempted or tried beyond your ability. But with the temptation or the trial, he will provide the way of escape that you may be able to endure it. So don't ever think the Lord would allow you to get into something that you cannot cope or deal with. He would not do that. Steadfastness and endurance. Hebrews 10. Therefore do not throw away your confidence, which is a great reward. For you have need of endurance, so that when you have done the will of God, you may receive what is promised. Colossians 1. And so from the day we heard, we have not ceased to pray for you, asking that you may be filled with the knowledge of his will in all spiritual wisdom and understanding, so as to walk in a manner worthy of the Lord, fully pleasing to him, bearing fruit in every good work, and increasing in the knowledge of God, being strengthened with all power according to his glorious might, for all endurance and patience with joy. Can you see that this always seems to be a connection between having to endure things and rejoicing? Count it all as joy. Give thanks to the Father who has qualified you to share in the inheritance of the saints in light. Give thanks. Troubles and strifes, all these things, give thanks. This is all for your good. If you live by faith, then it would seem that tests and trials are to be something that are to be welcomed with joy. Endurance and steadfastness are important, and we are called to thank Jehovah for developing these qualities in us. The testing of your faith produces steadfastness. Give thanks to the Father who has qualified you to share in the inheritance of the saints in light. We rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance. Rejoicing in hope, and know that Jehovah is faithful, and he will not let you be tempted beyond your ability. So let's begin by looking at Terah, Abraham's father. Terah is the last individual on the list of the descendants of Shem. Genesis 11, it says, "Now these are the generations of Terah. Terah fathered Abram, Nahor, and Haran fathered Lot. Haran died in the presence of his father Terah in the land of his kindred in Ur of the Chaldeans. And Abraham and Nahor took wives. The name of Abraham's wife was Sarah, and the name of Nahor's wife Milcah, the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah and Iscah." So there he is at the top there. And there's a bit of a family tree, which we'll come back to in a bit. Now Sarai was barren, she had no child. Please note, while we go through this story of Abraham's life, that she was barren. Terah took Abraham his son, and Lot the son of Haran his grandson, and Sarai his daughter-in-law, his son Abraham's wife, and they went forth together from Ur of the Chaldeans to go into the land of Canaan. But when they came to Haran, they settled there. This is important. The days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. So Terah sets off for Canaan, but he only gets as far as Haran. So we've got this genealogy and this story of Terah. This generally follows the same pattern as the rest of the individuals on the list on this genealogy, which includes an announcement of birth based on the year of the father's life, the passing of the father, and the name of the individual's progeny. But there is one noticeable difference. In the verses about each of the previous individuals, only one child is named, while other offspring are simply referenced with the phrase, "and he begat sons and daughters." So this leaves the clear impression that the primary heir and continuity of the family of Shem is the one son who gets named. In the case of Terah, however, all three of his sons are named, Abram, Nahor, and Haran, without any reference to additional offspring. This already signals that Terah's family is different. This impression is strengthened in the next verse, in which Terah and his family are reintroduced. It says, "And this is the line, Terah begat Abraham, Nahor, and Haran." Once again, each of Terah's three sons are named and counted as his descendants. In the subsequent verses, additional details about Terah's family are mentioned, including the fact that his son Haran begot Lot and died during his lifetime in his native land of Ur of the Chaldeans, as well as the names of the wives of Abraham and Nahor. The details of Terah's family that are mentioned in this passage help provide context to a number of significant elements that will appear later in the story. The background on Haran explains why Abraham's nephew Lot is part of his traveling party. The introduction of the family of Nahor and Milcah lays the groundwork for the story of finding a wife for Isaac. The disclosure of Sarai's barrenness foreshadows an important theme that runs throughout the lives of the first patriarch and matriarch. Now, when Abraham sought to find a wife for Isaac, he forbade his servant from choosing a wife from the native Canaanites and ordered him to go to his land and his kin to find the appropriate woman. So Abraham orders his servant, and in the Hebrew it is El Artzi Ve'el El Molah. I should practice these pronunciations. The reason I put it in, sometimes it's mistranslated, but it should be "to my land and to my kindred." Some people translate it to "my birthplace," but that's wrong. The servant represents Abraham's command to the family in Haran. When he turns up, he says, "My master made me swear, saying, 'You shall not get a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites in whose land I dwell, but you shall go to my father's house, to my kindred, and get a wife for my son.'" Now, Abraham does not explain why a woman from his family is preferable to a native woman in the area. In truth, in thinking of the family, though, their marriage patterns, we can see there is a tendency within this family to marry its own members. Nahor, Abraham's brother, marries Milcah, Haran's daughter. Isaac marries Rebekah, Nahor's granddaughter, while Jacob marries Leah and Rachel, Nahor's great-granddaughters. In fact, later in the story, Abraham tells Abimelech that he called Sarah his sister because she's related to him, as she is an offspring of his father. So what we actually find is that the patriarchs and the matriarchs are all actually descendants of Terah. Can you see that? Okay. Isaac, who does he marry? It all comes back to Terah. Can you see that? I'll just leave it up so you can have a quick look. The importance of Terah as the common ancestor of the chosen family is highlighted by the internal division of the book of Genesis. While the division of chapters and verses came later in history, the book of Genesis is naturally divided into sections through the literary tool of headings. Each new section begins with the phrase, Ve'ele toldot, and these are the generations. The individuals whose lives are introduced by this heading include Adam, Noah, the sons of Noah, Terah, Isaac, Ishmael, Esau, and Jacob. Interestingly, the one name that is left off the list that we would really expect to see is Abraham. And the name that perhaps surprisingly appears is Terah. Since the section about the chosen family begins with Ve'ele toldot Terah and is not interrupted with Ve'ele toldot Abraham, Terah is marked as the ancestor under whom this story unfolds. This perspective of Terah as the father of the patriarchal and matriarchal family explains why all three of his sons are named as his descendants. While Abraham stands out as the father of the patriarchs, Nahor and Haran are the fathers of the matriarchs, and as such, all three brothers form the origins of the chosen family. So, why should Terah be given such a privileged place in the narrative? Because he is actually implicated as serving other gods. In Joshua 24, Joshua said unto all the people, Thus says Jehovah, God of Israel, your fathers dwelt on the other side of the flood. The word is Nahar, it should be river, I think. The other side of the river in old time, even Terah, the father of Abraham and the father of Nahor, and they served other gods. Okay. It then goes on and says, And I took your father Abraham from the other side of the river, and led him throughout all the land of Canaan, and multiplied his seed, and gave him Isaac. And I gave unto Isaac Yaakov and Esau, and I gave unto Esau Mount Seir to possess it. But Yaakov and his children went down into Egypt. Yaakov going down to Egypt is actually foreshadowed in our Parsha. So, throughout the story of Genesis, it is Abraham, not Terah, who merits Jehovah's blessing and receives Jehovah's covenant. And it is Abraham, not Terah, who is referenced by all subsequent generations, including his immediate successors, Isaac and Jacob, as the father of their family. So why should Terah be given such a privileged place in the narrative? The hints from the text help us address this. The first hint is that Terah left Ur of the Chaldeans to travel to Canaan. Although the narrative does not reveal Terah's motivations for this journey, perhaps we could suggest that this physical journey reflects a shift in Terah's spiritual life journey. Interestingly, if one assumes that Terah in his lifetime began a spiritual journey to Jehovah, a couple of seemingly ambiguities that appear later in the story are clarified. For example, the conversation between the servants of Abraham and the family of Nahor is more understandable. After the servant of Abraham reveals his identity to Rebekah, she runs home and tells her family. And her brother Lavan rushes outside and he greets the stranger using the name of God. What does he say? He said, Come in, O blessed of Jehovah. How did these people have these reference points? Why do you stand outside? For I've prepared the house and a place for the camels. The name of God is repeated twice more by Bethuel and Lavan after hearing the servants of Abraham repeat the story of finding Rebekah. Lavan and Bethuel answered and said, The thing has come from Jehovah. So these people seem to have an understanding of who Jehovah is. We cannot speak to you bad or good. Behold, Rebekah is before you. Take her and go, and let her be the wife of your master's son, as Jehovah has spoken. The problematic element to this story is the fact that this family in Haran not only knew the name of God, but referred to it regularly in their conversations. They seem to know who Jehovah is. If we assume that Terah began the shift of the family towards Jehovah, then this also helps clarify why Abraham specifically wanted his son to marry into his family in Haran, as opposed to the idol worshippers of Canaan, as his family was distinct in their beliefs and practices. In addition, it provides greater context to the later encounter between Lavan and Yaakov, in which Lavan attempts to sanctify their agreement. And he says this, The God of Abraham and the God of Nahor and the God of their father judge betwixt us. So there's this in the text to suggest that actually Terah, Abraham's father, began this journey towards knowing who Jehovah was. And his whole family seemed to have an understanding of who Jehovah is. Yet Terah is not counted as the first of the patriarchs. What went wrong? After mentioning that Terah began a journey with the intent to reach Canaan, the story concludes with Terah stopping at Haran and not completing the journey. This differentiates Terah from his son, Abraham. Abraham both heard the call of Yehovah and followed through on his commands. Ultimate recognition is not reserved for the one who not only begins an important endeavor, but also triumphs over great difficulties to see it through to its completion. It is Abraham, not Terah, who reached the promised land and who sanctified Yehovah's name throughout his travels. Consequently, it is Abraham, not Terah, who was acknowledged by the later generations as the first of the patriarchs. Terah set off for Canaan, but what did he lack? He lacked steadfastness. He lacked endurance. Hebrews 12. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, he's referring to Hebrews 11, which is a list of those who had faith. Begins with Abel through to the prophets, which it says, of whom the world were not worthy. Let us lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. Look into Yeshua, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured from sinners such hostility against himself, so that you may not grow weary or faint-hearted. In your struggle against sin, you have not yet resisted to the point of shedding your blood. And have you forgotten the exhortation that addresses you as sons? My son, do not regard lightly the discipline of the Lord, nor be weary when reproved by him. For the Lord disciplines the one he loves, and he chastises every son whom he receives. It is for discipline that you have to endure. God is treating you as sons, for what son is there whom his father does not discipline? If you are left without discipline, in which all have participated, then you are illegitimate children, and you are not sons. Nobody wants to be illegitimate, do they? It is for discipline that you have to endure. So, let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. Consider Yeshua, that you may not grow weary or faint-hearted when things get really tough, when it's really challenging and really demanding. Endure. It's all very well if you start off okay. 1 Corinthians 9. But I discipline my body and keep it under control, lest after preaching to others, I myself should be disqualified. Paul endured and he was not disqualified. 2 Timothy 4. I fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Henceforth there is laid up for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on that day, and not only to me, but also to all who have loved his appearing. Would you like Yeshua to award you the crown of righteousness? Let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. Finish the race. Terah did not finish the race, did he? Give thanks to Yehovah for the suffering that produces steadfastness, that you might be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. Thank Yehovah for the trials that bring endurance and produce character which produces hope. It says in the last days there will be a group that is kept safe. What it says is interesting. Revelation 3. To the angel of the church in Philadelphia, brotherly love. The words of the Holy One, the true one, the one who has the key of David, who opens and no one will shut, who shuts and no one will open. I know your works. Behold, I have set before you an open door which no one is able to shut. I know that you have little power, yet you have kept my word and you have not denied my name. These are the people who Shema. These are the people who have not denied his character and have not misrepresented him or profaned his name. Behold, I will make those of the synagogue of Satan who say that they are Jews and are not, but lie. Behold, I will make them come and bow down before your feet, and they will learn that I have loved you. Because you have kept my word about patience, endurance. Again, we get this mention of endurance. I will keep you from the hour of trial that is coming on the whole world to try those who dwell on the earth. And I heard somebody say that this is better translated. You have kept my word, you have endured, you have patiently endured in keeping my word. I am coming soon. Hold fast what you have, so that no one may seize your crown. Continue, finish the race. Hold fast and endure. So maybe Terah set off from Ur with a heart set on following Yehovah. Why do you think he might have settled in Haran? The connection between Ur and Haran, what is it? It's the moon god's scene. Now here's Ur of the Chaldees. It was a bustling metropolis. It was a big place. Ur, which means light, or the moon city, was the birthplace of Haran, the principal commercial center of the country, as well as the center of political power. Stood near the mouth of the Euphrates, Ur was the port of Babylon, whence trade was carried on with distant countries. It was home to the famous temple of the moon god seen, and it shared this honor, however, with another city, and this city was Haran. They were like twin cities. Indeed, the temple of the moon god of Haran was perhaps even more famous in the Assyrian and Babylonian world than the temple of the moon god at Ur. At any rate, the two cities were bound together by the worship of the same deity, the closest and most enduring bond of union that existed in the ancient world. The Terah should have migrated from Ur to Haran, therefore ceases to be extraordinary. It was the most natural place for him to go. It was like passing from one court of a temple into another. So, Terah seems to have started well, but he couldn't shake the pull of false religion, the grip of Babylonian pagan worship, and that which had become familiar and comfortable to him. You meet people, and it's sad. They'll hear the truth, and it will register with them. And they'll, yeah, this is amazing. And they'll tentatively set out on the journey. Wow. But they'll just settle for Haran. They just can't leave behind that which is comfortable and familiar. Maybe things got tough for Terah. Maybe he was tested and failed to show himself to be true to Yehovah, because that's what happens to lots of people. Don't let that be you. If Yehovah has called you to follow him, then please don't only go so far and then settle for something less than what he's calling you to. Don't compromise like so many who are only prepared to go so far. The world is full of people who've been called, yet they refuse to Shema Yehovah. Churches are full of people who refuse to Shema Yehovah. They reveal exactly what's important to them, and it is clear to see the state of their hearts. Torah-keeping fellowships are full of people who refuse to Shema Yehovah when it comes to a time of testing. They have no endurance, no steadfastness. There are so many who hesitate when it comes to doing what Yehovah has commanded. So few people like Abraham who just do what Yehovah says without question and without trying to make his words somehow fit their own agenda, without trying to find excuses. People who are not going to try and settle for something that's, oh, this is like something I'm used to. Yeah, Haran, it's just like, I can fit in here. This is great. Acts 7:2. And he said, brethren and fathers, listen, the Elohim of glory appeared to our father Abraham when he was in Mesopotamia before he dwelt in Haran. Genesis 15:7. Then he said to him, I am Yehovah who brought you out of Ur of the Chaldeans to give you this land to inherit it. Abraham got the call early on. He was not going to settle in Haran. Compare him with his father. Terah had decided when in Ur to go to Canaan. He started, but he failed to make it. Abraham was not so easily distracted. What would cause you to be distracted? I've seen so many people are only prepared to go so far. They might as well be saying, yeah, I love you, Lord, but not that much. So many are like Terah. If you are somebody who has heard the truth, then don't go hanging on to all the rubbish that Yehovah has called you to leave behind. So many people with whom the truth resonates are okay acknowledging the truth, but when it comes to actually doing something about it, like letting go of people and places, they are terrible. And what does that say to the Lord? Terah was happy to continue hanging around with a bunch of people who like to worship a false god. Maybe he indeed knew of Yehovah and somehow convinced himself that he needed to cut his journey short so as to stay in Haran, to try to get through to the people he knew so much about and probably liked. Like a Torah keeper amongst those who reject the truth. I'll just stay here. So Terah does not have a heart that is 100% after Yehovah. Therefore, for Abraham to be blessed, we read this. The Lord said to Abraham, get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred and from thy father's house unto a land that I will show thee. He knew that Abraham loved him. Leave all them people behind. They don't really love me, Abraham. Leave it all behind. Come, follow me. Terah may well have had knowledge of Yehovah. He may well have been a lovely fella. But Abraham was told, leave him. It can be difficult to disengage from what you have known, but if you want to be blessed by Yehovah, then you must see things as Yehovah sees them and recognize things for what they are. In the end times, Jeremiah 16, for thus says Yehovah Zavaot, the God of Israel, behold, I will silence in this place before your eyes and in your days the voice of mirth and the voice of gladness, the voice of the bridegroom and the voice of the bride. And when you tell this people all these words and they say to you, why has Yehovah pronounced all this great evil against us? What is our iniquity? What is the sin that we have committed against Yehovah our God? I can imagine so many people saying that. What have we done? What's the terrible thing we've done? Then you shall say to them, because your fathers have forsaken me, declares Yehovah, and you've gone after other gods and have served and worshipped them, and you have forsaken me, and you have not kept my Torah. What have we done wrong? Because you have done worse than your fathers, for behold, every one of you follows his stubborn, evil will, refusing to listen to me, refusing to Shema. Therefore I will hurl you out of this land into a land that neither you nor your fathers have known, and there you shall serve other gods day and night, for I will show you no favor. The time is coming when people will not endure sound teaching, but having itching ears, they will accumulate for themselves teachers to suit their own passions. They will turn away from listening to the truth, the Torah, and wander off into myths and will say, what have we done wrong? For certain people have crept in unnoticed who long ago were designated for this condemnation, ungodly people who pervert the grace of our God into sensuality and deny our only Master and Lord, Yeshua HaMashiach. I want to remind you, although you once fully knew it, that Yeshua, who saved the people out of the land of Egypt, afterward destroyed those who did not believe, who did not obey. That's a reference to the fact that they did not obey. It's not believe as in, mental assent. We carry on in Jeremiah. Therefore, behold, the days are coming, declares Yehovah, when it shall no longer be said, as Yehovah lives, who brought up the people of Israel out of the land of Egypt. But as Yehovah lives, who brought up the people of Israel out of the north country and out of all the countries where he had driven them. For I will bring them back to their own land, and I will give it to their fathers, that I gave to their fathers. O Yehovah, my strength and my stronghold, my refuge in the day of trouble. To you shall the nations come from the ends of the earth. And what will they say? Our fathers have inherited nothing but lies, worthless things in which there is no profit. Can man make for himself gods? Such are not gods. Therefore, behold, I will make them know. This once I will make them know my power and might, and they shall know that my name is Yehovah. Our fathers have inherited nothing but lies, worthless things in which there is no profit. If you are holding on to the rubbish that the Lord has called you from, have a word with yourself. Don't be like Terah. Be like Abraham. The Lord says, behold, I am sending for many fishes, declares Yehovah, and they shall catch them, and afterward I will send for many hunters, and they shall hunt them from every mountain and every hill and out of the clefts of the rocks. For my eyes are on all their ways, they are not hidden from me, nor is their iniquity concealed from my eyes. But first I will doubly repay their iniquity and their sin, because they have polluted my land with the carcass of the detestable idols, and have filled my inheritance with their abominations. Yehovah has promised to take his people in the last days and lead them back to the land. Yehovah is calling to a people who are prepared to leave behind the inherited lies of their forefathers, a people who are prepared to step out in faith and leave behind all the comforts that they have grown accustomed to. Yehovah is calling the people out just like he called Abraham. Yehovah is calling the people of faith. Will you leave behind all the rubbish, all the nonsense, and step out in faith? Now the Lord said to Abraham, get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred and from thy father's house unto a land that I will show thee. There seems to be a theme in this parsha that suggests that it is only as Abraham says goodbye to those who do not figure in Yehovah's plan that Abraham is able to receive the full extent of the blessings that Yehovah has in store for him. Could it be the same for us? This speaks to me. Abraham is specifically told to leave his father's house. What a test for Abraham. To leave his father's house while he was still alive would give the appearance of disrespect in those days. And Yeshua made a comment which seems to apply. He who loves father and mother more than me is not worthy of me, and he who loves son and daughter more than me is not worthy of me. He means who chooses them above me. So ask yourself, are you an Abraham or a Terah? By faith, Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out of the place which he would receive as an inheritance. He went out not knowing where he was going. When everybody only got so far and said, no, we're going to stay here, he didn't settle for it, did he? He said, no, this is not it. Living Waters says this, faith then is a quality of response to the Almighty that is expressed in trust, reliance, commitments, and obedience. Faith's turn toward Yehovah begins with one simple step of obedience, like leaving Haran, predicated on what the Father has revealed to us. Then our Abba, our Father, helps us develop that faith. It is all the work of Yehovah, yet it requires our obedience to each step of revelation. Nothing can proceed without the first step. What if Abraham had never left Ur? This was the first step that Abraham took, and Yehovah began to fulfill his eternal purpose from there. So he said, get out of your country, get out from thy kindred and thy father's house. I will make a great nation of thee, I will bless thee, and I'll make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curses thee, and in thee shall all the families of the earth be blessed. So, now on the back of this whole thing of the lies that our fathers have inherited, let's get rid of all that rubbish. We'll end part 1. Just by quickly, briefly mentioning the Schofield Reference Bible, because it represents a load of the rubbish that we really have to say goodbye to, a load of the nonsense that we have to get rid of. We can't just come so far and hold on to rubbish and settle down in Haran. We need to get rid of a lot of it. The next slide shows how the notes of these 3 verses have been grown as the new editions have been published. So them 3 verses, there you go. This was the notes. Then these 3 verses get this many notes. So what we can see is over time, in this reference Bible, people are more interested in what men have got to say than what Yehovah has got to say. This is a slide I've used before. The Reference Bible is a Zionist interpretation of Bible scripture, footnoted in modern English. Written in 1909 by convicted felon Cyrus Schofield, financed by Jewish backers with bribes, the Bible was forced into the Bible colleges, the pulpits of Christian ministers, and the 20th century Christian beliefs. The Bible is a powerful Zionist tool in the creation and support of illegal Israel and the subjugation of the Christian religion into Zionism. C. Carlson says the Schofield Reference Bible was not just to be another translation subverting minor passages a little at a time. No, Schofield produced a revolutionary book that radically changed the context of the King James Version. It was designed to create a subculture around a new worship icon, the modern state of Israel, a state that did not yet exist, but which was already on the drawing boards of the committed, well-funded authors of world Zionism. And we have it today. They'd be made up when they see all this stuff. World Zionist leaders initiated a program to change America and its religious orientation. One of the tools used to accomplish this goal was an obscure and malleable Civil War veteran named Cyrus I. Schofield. A much larger tool was a venerable, well-respected European book publisher, the Oxford University Press. And a branch was set up in America with the express purpose of producing and promoting one book. The scheme was to alter the Christian view of Zionism by creating and promoting a pro-Zionist subculture within Christianity. Schofield's role was to rewrite the King James Version of the Bible by inserting Zionist-friendly notes in the margins, between verses and chapters, and on the bottoms of the pages. The Oxford University Press uses Schofield, a pastor by then, as the editor, probably because it needed such a man as for a front. The Revised Bible was called the Schofield Reference Bible, and with limitless advertising and promotion, it became a best-selling Bible in America and has remained so for over 90 years. Then we've got, there he is, Schofield, Samuel Untermeyer. What have these men got in common? Schofield's success as an international Bible editor without portfolio and his lavish living in Europe could only have been accomplished with financial aid and international influence. There is little reason to believe that Schofield knew or cared much about the Zionist movement, but at some point he became involved in a close and secret relationship with Samuel Untermeyer, a New York lawyer whose firm still exists today and one of the wealthiest and most powerful world Zionists in America, and he helped influence the outcome of the First and the Second World War. They shared a password and a common watering hole, the Lotus Club, and it appears that Untermeyer may have been the one who provided the money that Schofield himself lacked. Remember that Schofield Bible is the reason many Christians believe the modern state of Israel to be a regathering of his people. The Bible has given us pre-tribulation rapture, eternal security. Israel of the Old Testament was saved through a legalistic keeping of the law, while the church is saved by the work of Christ. Pits law against grace. The state of Israel is fulfillment of prophecy. It gives us the doctrine of dispensationalism. So now you know where most of the pastors get their theology from. Jeremiah says, but the pastors are stupid and do not inquire of Jehovah, therefore they have not prospered, all their flock is scattered. Woe to the pastors who destroy and scatter the sheep of my pasture, declares Jehovah. Christian Zionism is now a huge force, especially in America, thanks largely to the Schofield Reference Bible. One commentator says in the 67 edition deifies the state of Israel. The 67 version obviously has more notes. A quick look at some of the footnotes to Genesis 12, 1-3. God made an unconditional promise. We'll check that out in a bit. In part 3, I think, of the blessings through Abraham's seed to the nation of Israel to inherit a specific territory forever. There is a promise of blessing upon those individuals and nations who bless Abraham's descendants, and a curse upon those who persecute the Jews. Okay, we'll have a look at who the seed of Abraham is later as well. This bequeath is joined to an Oxford prophecy that never occurs in the Bible itself. It says, it has invariably fared ill with the people who have persecuted the Jew, well with those who have protected him, and the future will still more remarkably prove this principle. Okay, the day America turns its back on Israel is the day God will turn his back on America. We read all this. God will destroy America if you don't love Israel. Ooh. So America does support the state of Israel. So you ask yourself, where are all the blessings? America is becoming more morally corrupt by the minute. Jeremiah 15, what did we read before? O Lord, my strength, my stronghold, my refuge in the day of trouble. To you shall the nations come from the ends of the earth and say, our fathers have inherited nothing but lies, worthless things in which there is no profit. So many people find it difficult to let go of this idea that the state of Israel is a fulfillment of prophecy. Thanks to all the teachings that they've received, thanks to the proliferation of things like the Schofield Bible. But it's all nonsense. We're called to leave behind all the nonsense of men, all the nonsense that they speak. That's contrary to the word of God. Please note that the calling of Abraham, the father of our faith, was a call to disentangle from all associations that colored his way of thinking. He left behind that which he knew. He removed himself, not knowing where he was going. He trusted Jehovah. He shemad. He didn't question Jehovah or hang about. He just did as Jehovah commanded. He didn't have to sit and think, did he? He is known as the father of our faith because where others lacked, he was steadfast and he endured. So many like Terah come to a knowledge of Jehovah and yet cannot shake the pull of false religion, that which is familiar and comfortable to them. Are you an Avram or are you a Terah? We are called to leave behind the lies of forefathers and to put our trust in Jehovah. Believe me, it will cost you to follow the call. It will cost you. If, like Abraham, you walk by faith, then count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds, and rejoice. Give thanks to the Father who has qualified you to share in the inheritance of the saints in light. It isn't easy to follow that call. It wasn't easy for Abraham. It won't be easy for you. Luke 14. So then every one of you who does not take leave of all that he himself hath is not able to be my disciple. I was thinking about this the other day. The only people who actually endure anything are people who have a love. So many people will say, oh, I'd love to be able to play the guitar. And they'll go and I'll have lessons. But keep it up for a bit, the fingers will hurt. It's painful, this. They're not quite as good as they'd like to be, and it's a bit slow and tedious, and it's difficult. They don't endure, they're not steadfast, they don't stick at it because they don't love it enough. The same with lifting weights. So many people, oh, I want to go to the gym and get in shape and all that, and they go and they realize it's actually quite difficult, this. They have no real love for it, and they don't endure, and they don't stick with it. There's so many people, oh, sounds great, this guy of yours, he's brilliant, I'll follow him. And it might get difficult, and it might get tough. Oh, I'm not so sure. But the people who truly love him, they endure. Where else could I go but to Yeshua? No matter how tough it gets. What could be more precious than to have him say to me, you are my friend. I love him. I will endure anything so that I can be with him. And I know that everything that I have to endure is for my good, because he loves me. Amen. There we go. So, still on the first verse. Now the Lord had said unto Abraham, get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred, from thy father's house, unto a land that I will show thee. I'll make thee a great nation, I'll bless thee, and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curses thee, and in thee shall all the families of the earth be blessed. So, the blessings here are all conditional. They're not unconditional. Yehovah makes 8 separate promises to Abraham, all conditional upon Abraham going out. There they are. Show you the land to which you go. I'll make you into a goy gadol, an uplifted people group. I will bless you. I'll make your name great. And his name has been made great, hasn't it? He's revered throughout the whole world. Christians, Jews, Muslims. You'll become a source of blessing. I will bless those who bless you. I will curse those who curse you. I will engraft all nations and people groups of the earth into you. So Abraham departed as Yehovah had spoken to him, and Lot went with him. And Abraham was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran. And Abraham took Sarai his wife, and Lot his brother's son, and all their substance that they had gathered, and the souls that they had gotten in Haran, and they went forth to go into the land of Canaan, and into the land of Canaan they came. Please note, Sarai was barren at this point. Abraham doesn't know that one day that she's going to bear a child. Even though he was told to leave his kindred, he probably thinks his only chance of becoming a nation is through Lot and the rest of this group that he seems to have amassed together. So Abraham passed through the land unto the place of Shechem, unto the plain of the oak of Moreh, and the Canaanite was then in the land. The Lord appeared unto Abraham and said, unto thy seed will I give this land, and there builded he an altar unto the Lord who appeared to him. Quite an amazing place, Shechem, isn't it? It's where the Israelites end up before they go into the promised land as well. Now Abraham knows that the promise is for his seed. It must have been a remarkable thing to hear, because the Lord has just said, unto thy seed I will give this land. He's like, wow. Because obviously at this point he's quite an old man, and his wife's barren. He has got no kids. Now, I'm just have a think about what promises that we have. Sometimes we forget, don't we? The Lord tells us to remember things, to remember all that he's done for us. Remember that he is the God that brought us up out of the world, out of the land of Egypt. The one who has brought us from death to life, from darkness to light. 2 Peter 1, his divine power has granted us to all things that pertain to life and godliness, through the knowledge of him who called us to his own glory and excellence, by which he has granted to us his precious and very great promises, so that through them you may become partakers of the divine nature, having escaped from the corruption that is in the world because of sinful desire. Now, he removed from thence unto a mountain on the east of Bethel, and he pitched his tents, having Bethel on the west and Hai on the east, and there he builded an altar unto Jehovah and called upon the name of the Lord. So, to call upon the name of Jehovah, to pray to him and to appeal to his character. And that's what Abraham seems to do quite a lot in this parsha. And Abraham journeyed, going on still south toward the south. And there was a famine in the land, and Abraham went down into Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was grievous in the land. Okay, we could just pass over this little thing by tutting and talk about Abraham's lack of faith. But I want us to have a think about the situation. You could just read that verse, couldn't you? There was a famine, and he went down to Egypt. What was he doing? He's supposed to be in the land of Canaan. Okay, Jehovah has promised to bless Abraham, hasn't he? He says, go out and I'll bless you. Abraham travels to Canaan as he was told. This is a massive undertaking. And he does what the Lord's asked of him. He didn't hang about. He didn't mess about. His father stuck around in Haran, and all the rest of his family just were all happy there. He didn't do that. He continued on as the Lord had asked of him. Then Abraham is confronted with a grievous famine. A famine would be bad enough, never mind a grievous famine. He's done exactly what the Lord's asked of him. He's gone to exactly the place where the Lord told him to go. And what's he confronted with? A grievous famine. Imagine what had happened at the beginning of the journey. We seem to forget sometimes. We're reading about real people who lived real lives, and they were normal people. Generally just like people, aren't they? Abraham gathers all these people that before the promise of the seed, he probably thinks at the beginnings of this great nation he's been promised. He gets them all together. He tells them that Jehovah has called him to go to Canaan and that he will be greatly blessed. The Lord has called me to do this, and he promises that he will bless me. So, okay, folk. They all tag along. You can imagine the excitement and the expectation. We know that Abraham obviously yielded a lot of influence over the people. If he can turn around and they all get circumcised on the same day, they probably were all delighted. They were probably all made up. What must Abraham have thought? I've done what you asked of me, Lord. I've got all these people relying on me. I told them that you were going to bless me. Jehovah a liar? He said he would bless him. And here he is, he's in the land of Canaan, where he's supposed to be, and there's a grievous famine. We know how it ends for Abraham, so we laugh and we say, of course not. The Lord's not a liar. The Lord said he promised that he'd bless him, and he does bless him. But at this moment in Abraham's life, when he's exactly where he was told to be, and the famine is grievous, how do you think he felt? We even actually say, oh dear, Abraham, he lacked faith, didn't he? Didn't he lack faith? He got off to Egypt. Now ask yourself, have you ever been dejected? Have you ever been down? Have you ever thought, what's going on here, Lord? I'm doing what you ask of me, and if anything, things are getting worse. Have you ever thought, this looks bad, my situation is a terrible witness? Has Jehovah promised to bless you? The answer is yes. He says, I set before you blessings and curses. Choose life and death, choose life. Walk in my ways and you will be blessed. Ask yourself if you think Jehovah to be a liar. Yehovah who has promised to bless you. Just like Abraham, you do not know how your life will unfurl. He had no idea at this point when he's in the land of Canaan and there's a grievous famine of all the rest of the things that were going to happen in his life. All he knows is, I have done exactly what you asked of me, Lord, and I am in this place that you asked me to come, and there is a famine. And all these people have come with me. I've told them that you will bless me. You know how it went for Abraham, and so you read about this grievous famine and it's not a big deal. You probably even read over the verse and don't even think much about it, except to think, oh, lacked faith, did he? Well, Yehovah knows how it goes for you, and whatever calamity it is that colours your story does not take away from the fact that you are blessed by the God of Abraham, and you are truly blessed. For all those who choose to walk in righteousness, who walk in the same manner as Yeshua, that no matter how grievous your famine, remember who called you. It is Yehovah, the God of Abraham, the very same God. If you walk in his ways, then consider how he regards you. You are my friend if you do what I command you, if you hearken to my voice. If you shema, then you can be sure that the Lord of all creation considers you his friend. Let it sink in. The same God who is the God of Abraham considers you his friend. And Abraham called on the name of the Lord. To call upon the name of Yehovah is to pray to him and appeal to his character. His word is his character. Stand on his word. Call upon his name. Cast your burden on Yehovah and he will sustain you. He will never permit the righteous to be moved. This is his word. His word stands forever. And Yehovah, he is the righteous. You might think he doesn't, but his word tells me that he does. We know that God does not hear sinners, but if anyone is God-fearing and does his will, he hears him. 1 Peter 3, for the eyes of the Lord are on the righteous, and his ears are open to their prayer. The face of the Lord is against those who do evil. If things are desperate and you're beside yourself, then call upon Yehovah. Psalm 34, when the righteous cry for help, Yehovah hears and delivers them out of all their troubles. Yehovah is near to the brokenhearted and he saves the crushed in spirit. We know that he was near to Abraham throughout the whole of his life. But I bet you there was times in Abraham's life, especially when he turns up and there's a grievous famine, and he thinks, where are you, Lord? Maybe you're feeling a bit lost and a bit without direction. James 1:5. If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God. He gives to all generously and without reproach, and it will be given to him. That is the word of God. You can stand on that. Psalm 66. Come in here, all you who fear God, and I will tell you what he has done for my soul. So if you fear God, he is saying, come and listen to me now. I'm going to tell you something incredible. He's going to tell you something that is going to encourage you. He says, I cried to him with my mouth and high praise was on my tongue. If I had cherished iniquity in my heart, the Lord would not have listened. But truly God has listened. He has attended to the voice of my prayer. Blessed be God, because he has not rejected my prayer or removed his steadfast love from me. When does Yehovah not listen then? If I had cherished iniquity in my heart, the Lord would not have listened. If you turn your ear from hearing the Lord, even his prayer is an abomination. Well, James 4. You ask and do not receive because you ask with wrong motives so that you may spend it on your pleasures. Whatever you ask in my name, I will do. My character. David says this, O Yehovah, I call upon you. Hasten to me. Give ear to my voice when I call to you. Let my prayer be counted as incense before you, and the lifting of my hands as the evening sacrifice. The Lord hears the prayers of the righteous. And everything give thanks, for this is God's will for you in Yeshua HaMashiach. And if you will pray and cry out to the Lord, remember to give thanks. No matter what your circumstances are, give thanks. This is amazing, beautiful words. Yehovah is my shepherd. I shall not want. The Lord of all creation, who calls you his friend, shepherds you and watches over you. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul, and he leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. And a rod and a staff can be used for discipline too, but you should be comforted by that too. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies, and you anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of Yehovah forever. Remember that Yehovah is sovereign over all things. He caused the famine, and he knew that Abraham would go to Egypt. He orchestrated all the events, and he did it for his purpose. Abraham still needed to learn a lot about who Yehovah is and what it means to follow him. God is in the business of growing Abraham into a man of great faith, and this requires circumstances where Abraham must trust God. And there's a quote from Barnhouse. Faith is not a mushroom that grows overnight in a damp soil. It is an oak tree that grows for 1,000 years under the blast of the wind and rain. The God of Abraham is your God. Yehovah is also in the business of growing you. Steadfastness. The testing of your faith produces steadfastness, endurance. But we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance. Verse 11. It came to pass when he is come near to enter into Egypt that he said unto Sarai his wife, Behold, now I know that thou art a fair woman to look upon. Therefore it shall come to pass when the Egyptians shall see thee, that they shall say, This is his wife, and they will kill me, but they will save thee alive. Say, I pray thee, thou art my sister, that it may be well for me for thy sake, and my soul shall live because of thee. When I read around here, I do some reading. There's like the old sages have these stories of how it went. There's a thing in it that tickled me. So they believe that Abraham hid Sarah in this box, and they said, "Right, okay, what's in there?" And he said, "Oh, it's wheat." And he said, "Well, you must pay the taxes on the wheat." He said, "Okay, that's cool." Then he said, What's really in there? And he said, "Oh, it's gold." And he kept getting wet. "You must pay the taxes on gold." And he got suspicious because he never questioned that, and he was willing to pay it. And he said, "Open the box." And in it says, he opened the box, and in it there's Sarah, his wife. He said she was so beautiful and radiant. And the way it's worded is that she made all the other women look like monkeys. I don't know why, but it really tickled me. I don't know. So Abraham was concerned over his wife's attractiveness to the Egyptians. I don't know why it tickles me so much. She's in her 60s, by the way, at this point. Since Abraham lived to be 175 and Sarai to be 127, this was only middle age for her. So maybe it was like her being in her 30s. I don't know, but it's still remarkable, isn't it? She's in her 60s and he's worrying. And he says, please say you're my sister, which was in fact a half-truth. She was his sister. From Genesis 20, we see, besides, she is indeed my sister, the daughter of my father, though not the daughter of my mother, and she became my wife. So Abraham's intent here was clearly to deceive, and he trusted in his deception to protect him instead of trusting in Jehovah. And the princes also of Pharaoh saw her and commended her before Pharaoh, and the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. And he entreated Abraham well for her sake, and he had sheep and oxen and he-asses and men servants and maid servants and she-asses and camels. This may actually be the place from where Hagar became part of his household. The Lord plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abraham's wife. And Pharaoh called Abraham and said, what is this that thou hast done unto me? Why didst thou not tell me that she was thy wife? Why saidst thou, she is my sister, so I might have taken her to my wife? Now therefore, behold thy wife, take her and go thy way. And Pharaoh commanded his men concerning him, and they sent him away and his wife and all that he had. Chapter 13. So Abraham went up from Egypt, he and his wife and all that he had, and Lot with him into Negeb. Now Abraham was very rich in livestock, in silver and in gold. It all sounds really familiar, doesn't it? Everything is cyclical, isn't it? We've got a famine. Go down to Egypt. Sarah representing the seed, Israel taken by Pharaoh. Then we've got plagues. And then we've got Pharaoh ordering Jehovah's people to leave with great wealth. It's incredible, isn't it? The stories in scriptures are all cyclical. Abraham is not exactly perfect then, is he? First, he did not fully follow Jehovah's instructions to go out from his father's family. He took his nephew Lot, his brother's son, with him in direct disobedience to the divine instruction, and that will cause him further bother in the future. Then he shoots off to Egypt, where he was not only dishonest, but completely dishonored his wife, endangered her purity, and subjected her to the depraved lusts of the Pharaoh and his harem attendants. It could have ended in disaster, but it didn't. Miraculously, Abraham and all that was his not only survived, but prospered. They may have been expelled from Egypt, but when they went out, they did not go empty-handed. They went out loaded down with riches and servants and great flocks and herds. So what we see here is grace as an integral part of the Abrahamic covenant. It didn't just get written off, you've done it all wrong, forget it. Grace is not a New Testament innovation. Despite what the Schofield Bible might say, the issue from a Hebraic perspective is not of law and grace. The issue is what is necessary to keep the covenant relationship vital alive, moving forward. Sometimes grace takes the form of forgiveness, other times discipline, other times supernatural intervention, other times, however, his grace takes the frightening form of hiding his face from us and appearing suddenly aloof and unapproachable, because under the circumstances, that is what it takes to keep the relationship on course. Grace. It's about covenant perpetuation and fullness, not comfort, convenience, or happiness. It's about mission, purpose, and destiny, not sentimentality or indulgence. And there it is in the Hebrew. And it means to separate from the outside and protect, to protect life. And we've got the het and the noon. This is like a fence, and this is a symbol for life. And it's also related to the word for making, to make a camp. Hen or grace is related to the word for making a camp, because grace is all about relationship. For the Hebrew who does not think abstractly, grace is associated with the feelings of love and safety when one comes back to the safety of camp or home. It's a good picture, isn't it? There's another picture, the safety of camp. And you come back home and you get them feelings of love and security and, oh, it's okay here. Oh, deep thought, I like it. Hen is a covenant term that means little outside of our covenantal relationship with Yehovah. Who does Yehovah keep covenant with? I prayed to Yehovah my God and made confession saying, O Lord, the great and awesome God who keeps covenant and steadfast love with those who love him and keep his commandments. So Yehovah keeps covenant with those who keep his commandments. It is these people who love him. These are the ones who Yehovah knows, as we read before in 1 Corinthians 8:3. Remember, grace is a covenant matter. It's all about our relationship with him. By this we know that we have come to know him if we keep his commandments. Whoever says, I know him, but does not keep his commandments is a liar, and the truth is not in him. But whoever keeps his word, in him truly the love of God is perfected. By this we may know that we are in him. Whoever says he abides in him ought to walk in the same way in which he walked. So if you know him, you will walk as he walked. And if you know him, then you enjoy the chen, the grace that comes from the relationship. The safety and protection comes from abiding in him. Hen is what protects life. It leads to life eternal. Ephesians 2:8-9. For by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not your own doing, it is the gift of God. Not a result of works, that no one may boast. So, what does faith lead to? It leads to obedience. It leads to surrender. The father of faith, Abraham, what was his response? Whenever the Lord spoke, he just did it. He didn't even hang about. When you repent and turn to walk with him, you are saved. Not by your own abilities or works, but because you are entered into a relationship with him. John 17:3. This is eternal life, that they may know you, the only true God, and Yeshua HaMashiach, whom you have sent. It's all about relationship and being in covenant. It is the righteous who will inherit eternal life. Those that know him walk in righteousness. Matthew 25. These will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous into eternal life. 1 John 3:7. Little children, let no one deceive you. Whoever practices righteousness is righteous as he is righteous. So the righteous go into eternal life. Those who practice righteousness. What does it mean to be righteous? It will be righteousness for us if we are careful to do all this commandment before Yehovah our God as he has commanded us. Keeping Torah and enjoying Yehovah's grace go hand in hand. It isn't law versus grace. Abraham, he believed in the Lord and he counted it to him for righteousness. Abraham did what Yehovah asked of him. He trusted and he obeyed. He had faith. Faith without works is dead, remember. John 11, Yeshua said, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me will live even if he dies, and everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. And he says, do you believe this? And people say, oh, we just need to believe, hoorah, and you get things like this. It's all done, I don't have to do nothing, just believe and live, great. John 3:36, whoever believes in the Son has eternal life, then it's qualified. Whoever does not obey the Son shall not see life. To believe is to obey. Truly, truly, I say to you, if anyone keeps my word, he will never see death. And Yeshua said, my teaching is not mine, but him who sent me, for those who think that he's came with some different doctrine and like to hold on to this idea, which is nonsense. And we looked at that the other week. The law was given by Moshe, but grace and truth came by Yeshua HaMashiach. The but shouldn't even be there. It's saying one and the same thing, grace and truth. Grace is the central theme of Torah. Genesis 6:8. Noah found chen, or grace, in the eyes of Yehovah. What was the secret of him in finding grace? These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a righteous man and he walked with God. Righteous means just, lawful, careful to keep the commandments. And interesting, Noah's name is Nun Het, which is backwards of what grace is. It's interesting to me that whenever a Hebrew would think of grace, he would be making a linguistic connection with Noah. He was a man saved, a man whose life was protected, a man who did with regards to the ark all that Yehovah commanded him. As you seek life rather than abide in Yeshua, let him be your refuge. Romans 5:21. So that as in sin reigned in death, grace also might reign through righteousness, leading to eternal life through Yeshua HaMashiach our Lord. Romans 6:23. For the wages of sin is death, but the free gift of God is eternal life in Yeshua HaMashiach our Lord. John 15. If anyone does not abide in me, he is thrown away like a branch and withers, and the branches are gathered and thrown into the fire and burnt. So what does it mean to abide in him? As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love. Wow, it couldn't be clearer, could it? Just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. Not that his Father's commandments are different. He did exactly as he saw the Father doing. And we do is exactly what we see Yeshua doing, which is to walk fully in the Torah. These things I have spoken to you, that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be full. That's an incredible thing, isn't it, that people don't realize? In walking in the truth, in keeping all of his commandments, there is great joy. Psalm 16, you made known to me the path of life. In your presence there is fullness of joy. At your right hand the pleasures forevermore. Who can even imagine? I got an email the other day, last night actually, off Sam in America, and he said, said in the kingdom he hopes that he's got a pear tree, and he wants to invite me round so I can enjoy some of his pears and have a cup of tea with him. I just thought that was great. Isaiah 55, for those who are not walking in righteousness, for those who carry the Lord's name in vain, for those who seek to claim his righteousness yet do not practice righteousness, for those who say, I'm under grace, I'm not under the law, and completely miss what grace is all about. Then repent. Seek Yehovah while he may be found, call upon him while he is near. Let the wicked forsake his way and the unrighteous man his thoughts. Let him return to Yehovah, that he may have compassion on him, and to our God, for he will abundantly pardon. So it could have ended in disaster for Avram. Could have just got written off, couldn't he? But it didn't. Psalm 84. For Yehovah, the Lord is a sun and a shield, and Yehovah bestows grace and honor. No good thing does he withhold from those who walk uprightly. If you want Yehovah to bestow grace upon you, then walk uprightly. Walk in his ways. Chapter 13. And Abram went up out of Egypt, he and his wife and all that he had, and Lot with him into the south. And Abram was very rich in cattle and silver and in gold. And he went on his journeys from the south even to Bethel, unto the place where his tent had been at the beginning, between Bethel and Hai, to the place of the altar which he had made there at the first. And there Abraham, again, what did he do? He called on the name of the Lord. And Lot also, which went with Abraham, had flocks and herds and tents. And the land was not able to bear them, that they might dwell together, for their substance was great, so they could not dwell together. And there was a strife between the herdmen of Abraham's cattle and the herdmen of Lot's cattle, and the Canaanite and the Perizzite dwelled then in the land. And Abraham said unto Lot, let there be no strife, I pray thee, between me and thee, between my herdmen and thy herdmen, for we are brethren. Is not the whole land before thee? Separate thyself, I pray thee, from me. If thou wilt take the left hand, then I will go to the right. Or if thou depart to the right hand, then I will go to the left. This is quite a remarkable response, because Abraham is actually, he's older. He's the senior. He's the one who took Lot with him. He could have just said, no, hang on, you go over there and I'll do this. And he could have decided how things went. Well, it reminds me of this scripture. Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves. Let each of you look not to his own interest, only to his own interests, but also to the interests of others. And I think partly this could have been, it says, doesn't it, there was other people in the land at the time, and it was a terrible witness that they'd be arguing. And Abraham wanted it resolved. And Lot lifted up his eyes and beheld all the plain of the Jordan, that it was well watered everywhere, before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, even as the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt. as thou comest unto Zoar. Then Lot chose for himself all the plain of Jordan, and Lot journeyed from the east, and they separated from each other. Even though Abraham and Lot travelled together to and fro from Egypt, the impact of that visit on the two of them was profoundly different. Abraham returned to the land of promise, inspired with devotion for Yehovah, heading straight for Bethel to call out in God's name. Contrast, Lot appears to have been impressed by the good life in Egypt, the bustling commerce, the extravagant wealth, the inviting tropical climate, and the mighty river that made it all possible. Lot fell for all the glitz and the glamour and the glory of the secular world. Oh, I like this place. It's like Egypt. Now, William Bullock Sr. said something which is interesting. When provocation comes into our lives, the critical question is never who is to blame. The critical question for us is how the Holy One would have us respond. Watch Abraham and learn from him. All our personality conflicts are tests. Most of us think the main issue when personality conflicts start to surface is how can we salvage the relationship with the person by whom we have been offended and or who is offended by us. As important as that is, however, that is not the main issue. The main issue is not whether we will salvage the relationship, but is whether we will submit the relationship to the Holy One, as Abraham had apparently never done up to that point, or whether we will continue to elevate the relationship with the other person or group of people over the relation that we have received, the revelation we have received from the Holy One. Some relationships, you see, those not based on the truth, are more damaging than they are beneficial to both parties. They may be comfortable like an old shoe. They may have extensive blood, sweat and tear investments and emotional memories by the score. But the truth of the matter is this: no relationship that is not founded in and submitted to the will of the Holy One is worth saving. Please note that none of the comments here about relationships apply to marriage. A marriage is more than a relationship. It's a covenant. It no doubt made Abraham feel good about himself to do something nice for Lot. And Lot, on the other hand, came to rely on Abraham rather than on the Holy One. And Abraham, it appears, held on to Lot even when the Holy One was telling him to let go. The Holy One stood by silently and allowed the relationship between the two of them to grow sour on its own and to bear fruit consistent with its essence, which was rebellion and self-will. Yehovah said, "Leave your country, your people, and your father's household and go." That's not what Abraham did, is it? Why did the Abraham-Lot relationship have to end? From Yehovah's perspective, Lot, a man who consciously chose Sodom as his life environment, could have no part in raising and training up the seed of promise that was to come, Yitzhak. Even with faith in Yehovah, this man was not able to pull himself away from the world, symbolized by Egypt. And of course, the connection is made that in journeying from the east, it says, doesn't it, and Lot journeyed from the east. This word means that which is preordained, ancient, and it represents that which is of Yehovah. So saying he came from the east, it's like saying he has distanced himself from the pure ways of Yehovah. And Lot's condition can be pretty much summarized in what we read in Revelation. "I know your works, that you are neither cold nor hot. I could wish that you were cold or hot. So then, because you are lukewarm and neither cold nor hot, I will vomit you out of my mouth." This was Lot's condition. Now that Lot has left Abraham's camp, the Almighty is ready to bless Abraham. Can we learn anything from this? Abraham went up out of Egypt, he and his wife and all that he had, and Lot with him into the south. And Abraham was very rich in cattle and silver and gold. And he went on his journeys from the south even to Bethel, unto the place where he had been at the beginning between Bethel and Hai, unto the place of the altar which he had made there at the first. And there Abraham called on the name of Yehovah. And Lot also, which went with Abraham, had flocks and herds and tents. And Abraham dwelled in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelled in the cities of the plain, and pitched his tent towards Sodom. But the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before the Lord exceedingly. Lot made his choice purely based on what he could see with his eyes. He cares only for the material abundance of the land and cares nothing for how it will impact him and his family spiritually. As much as anything, faith means we don't walk by what we see, but by what we know to be true in Yehovah. 2 Corinthians 5:7, for we walk by faith, not by sight. Abraham was walking by faith. Lot was walking only by sight. Lot pitched his tent even as far as Sodom, it says. It is only this far for now, but later Lot will become a leader of this sinful city. He just got drawn in, didn't he? And then he ends up being one who sits at the gate, somebody who's esteemed in the city. Valuing only the things that can be seen will increase his wealth temporarily, but he will lose it all. Isn't that, this just, there he is, oh, this would be great, this would be marvellous, and whatever it was he was striving for and going after, it all got taken from him. Because as we know what happens to Sodom and Gomorrah. Of course, Lot thought, I can serve God as well as here. They probably need a witness, this old one. But he was deceiving himself. Beware of our ability to deceive ourselves. Jeremiah says, the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? And the Lord said unto Abraham after Lot was separated from him, lift up now thine eyes and look from the place where thou art, northward and southward and eastward and westward. So after he separates from this man who was of compromise, the Lord says, okay, I'm going to speak with you now and meet with you. For all the land which thou seest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed forever. I'll make thy seed as the dust of the earth, so that if a man can number the dust of the earth, then shall thy seed also be numbered. So now that Lot is gone, Yehovah reassures Abraham about his seed. Because obviously for a time there, he was thinking, well, Sarah's barren, it's probably going to fall to Lot and the entourage to build this nation. Arise, walk through the land in the length of it and the breadth of it, for I will give it unto thee. I think it's incredible that the Lord does this, doesn't he? He reassures us. At times in our lives, he will come to us and he will speak a word to us. When things might not, wow, we don't kind of figure it out, he will come and he will just say, okay. But interestingly as well, when we make a move away from all the stuff that he's called us to move away from, that's often when he will come and he will meet with us. And Abraham removed his tent and came and he dwelt in the plain of Mamre, which is in Hebron. Mamre means vision, Hebron means communion. So once again, Abraham is walking in Yehovah's vision for him and he is in communion with Yehovah. How fitting. And he built there an altar unto the Lord. So Abraham first had to leave his father, who held on to the traditions of the forefathers and didn't want to leave that which was comfortable to him. Terah had come so far only to settle for the familiar. Then Abraham had to part company with Lot, a man who, although he had faith, was far too interested in what the world had to offer. Abraham, the man of faith, is blessed each time he cuts ties with the places and the people that do not share his passion for the Almighty, the Creator of all things, Yehovah. Have you left behind the lies inherited from your fathers, or like Terah, do you cling to them? Have you parted ways with those who claim the same faith as you, people who enjoy having a relationship with, but people that ultimately you know are not on the same journey as you? Have you said goodbye amicably to such folk? You should. Or are you loath to break ties as they meet a need and make you feel good about yourself? Would it just be too difficult, too uncomfortable? Are you an Abraham, a Lot, or a Terah? Chapter 14. Because a famine in the land would and did consolidate wealth and power in the only area of the land the famine would not affect, the well-watered and fertile Jordan Valley. In times of famine, mass migrations of people occur and the economies of the river valleys flourish. And the Eastern Empire could not resist. We're going to have this war now, aren't we? 4 kings from the east brought their armies to the Jordan River Valley to make war on 5 city-states of the plain where all the wealth of Canaan was accumulated. Yehovah sent Abraham away where he wouldn't even know that the war was going on till it was over. He's walking around everywhere, isn't he? Seeing what it is that the Lord has promised. 4 kings of the east win, and the 5 kings of the plain were forced to pay tribute. And this went on for 12 years until the 5 kings, the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah and the other cities of the plain, regathered their strength. There was a rebellion, but it didn't go well for the 5 kings, and they were heavily defeated. And we pick it up in verse 10. And the vale of Siddim was full of slime pits, and the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled and fell there, and they that had remained fled to the mountain. And they took all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their victuals and went their way. And they took Lot, Abraham's brother's son, who dwelt in Sodom, and his goods, and departed. And there came one that had escaped and told Abram the Hebrew. That's the first time we get the mention of somebody being a Hebrew. There he is, Abram, one that has crossed over. For he dwelt in the plain of Mamre, the Amorite, brother of Eshcol, brother of Aner, and these were confederate with Abram. And when Abram heard that his brother was taken captive, he drew out his trained servants, born in his own house, 318, and pursued them unto Dan. He divided himself against them, he and his servants, by night, and smote them and pursued them unto Hobah, which is on the left hand of Damascus. Now these folk were giants, so this was some incredible victory. Clearly, Yehovah was with Avram. Some of the places that are mentioned there you might recognize, like Eshcol and stuff like that, as they relate to stories that come later in Scripture. And some of the names of the peoples, these people were giants. This was an incredible victory. And he brought back all the goods, and also brought again his brother Lot and his goods, and the women also, and the people. So Lot had followed his eyes and gone to live in the land full of wealth, and Abraham ended up with all the wealth. Amazing. And the king of Sodom went out to meet after him after his return from the slaughter of Chedorlaomer and of the kings that were with him at the valley of Shaveh, which is in the king's dale. And Melchizedek, or Melchizedek, or however some people pronounce it, king of Salem, brought forth bread and wine, and he was the priest of the Most High God. And he blessed him, and he said, Blessed be Abraham of the Most High God, possessor of heaven and earth. And blessed be the Most High God, which hath delivered thine enemies into thy hand. And he gave him tithes of all. Okay. Melchizedek, king of Salem, of Jerusalem. JP's favourite. Now, speaking of Yeshua, Hebrews 7, For he testifieth thou art a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. This is actually taken from Psalm 110, verse 4. What's happening? Yeshua is of the tribe of Judah and not of the tribe of Levi, yet he is a priest after the order of Melchizedek. Now, after the order of is Al-Dibra. And Al-Dibra means after the same manner, in the same way as. Most assume this is an order a bit like the Franciscans is an order of monks. But for some background on this, Barnes' commentary, thou art a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. The word rendered order here makes properly a word, a thing, a matter, hence a way or manner. The meaning here is that he would be a priest after the manner of Melchizedek, or such a priest as he was. He would not be of the tribe of Levi, he would not be in the regular line of the priesthood, but he would resemble in the characteristics of his office this ancient priest king. Hebrews 7:11. Now if perfection had been attainable through the Levitical priesthood, what further need would there be for another priest to arise after the order of Melchizedek, rather than one named after the order of Aaron? There was no priestly order of Aaron, just as there's no priestly order of Melchizedek. It just means in the same manner as. And then people say, but Melchizedek is well mysterious. Because in Hebrews 7:3 it says, he is without father or mother or genealogy, having neither beginning of days nor end of life, but resembling the Son of God, he continues a priest forever. Ooh. And everywhere I look, I see, oh, he's a pre-incarnate Jesus Christ and all these things. Hebrews 7:3 in the Aramaic makes much more sense. It says, of whom neither his father nor his mother are recorded in the genealogies, nor the origination of his days, nor the closing of his life, but after the likeness of the Son of Elohim, his priesthood remains forever. Much more sensible. And if you want to know more, then go to the YouTube channel, go to the playlists, and check this out. This is, as you can see, this is about 5 hours worth of study that JP did, and it's remarkable. If you're at all in doubt as to any of this stuff, go and check this out. You're without excuse, because it's explained in full. He goes into extremely great depth. And also, if you haven't got 5 hours and you just want to watch something shorter, check this out. Are we priests in the order of Melchizedek? If you just go to the YouTube channel and then you you scroll down, you will find this as well. So there's no reason for anybody to be confused about this matter. And the king of Sodom said unto Abraham, give me the persons and take the goods to thyself. And Abraham said to the king of Sodom, I have lifted up mine hand unto the Lord, the Most High God, the possessor of heaven and earth, that I will not take from a thread even to a shoe latchet, that I will not take anything that is thine, lest thou shouldst say, I have made Abraham rich. Save only that which the young men have eaten, and the portion of the men which went with me, Anna, Eshcol, and Mamre, let them take their portion. So Abraham has come a long way. He's left behind the lies inherited from his forefathers. He's parted company with Lot, who incidentally, even after being rescued, decided to go back to Sodom rather than be shaken into a realization that perhaps he wasn't in the best place, both geographically and with Yehovah. And, what have I put there? He has also now refused the enticement of great wealth. He knows that Yehovah deserves all the glory, and his faith is such that he knows he has no need of what the world would offer him. He knows Yehovah is faithful, and he wants Yehovah to take all the credit for the blessings and riches in his life. Now Abraham is ready in chapter 15 to enter into covenant with Yehovah. So we'll bring part 2 to a close. I'm sure there were many times when things were tough and Abraham felt dejected. The things he went through were not easy. We read about his life, and things that were huge are just like a sentence, and we don't really think much of it. Things that would have been really difficult, and big, huge things in his life. And we know how it all ends. He was walking through his life. He didn't know how it all ended, just as you don't know how your life will unfurl. But sure, there were times when he thought, what's going on, Lord? Bet he thought that when he was on his way to have a big battle, wasn't he, with a load of giants? We see that Yehovah was with him in all things. We see that Yehovah was in the business of growing him. Now, remember this, the God of Abraham is your God. Yehovah is also in the business of growing you. And be glad of it. Why do you think it says in Scripture, count it all joy? Why does it say rejoice, even though you may be suffering? Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds, and rejoice, steadfastness, endurance. For all those who choose to walk in righteousness, who walk in the same manner as Yeshua, if you walk in his ways, then consider how he regards you. You are my friend if you do what I command you, if you hearken to my voice. Take great comfort in that. No matter what is going on in your life. I remember once being really dejected and sitting on a bench, and I've probably mentioned it before. And I looked up, and I looked up above the tree line into the sky. And I was so heavy-hearted and down. And then, just this sudden incredible realization. It doesn't matter, does it? None of that matters. Because you love me, Lord. You love me. He says, you are my friend if you do what I command you. If you hearken to my voice. If you've been grieved by a grievous famine, cast your burden on Yehovah and he will sustain you. He will never permit the righteous to be moved. Give thanks to the Father who has qualified you to share in the inheritance of the saints in light. Amen. Okay. Lech Lecha, part 3. We're looking at chapter 15, which is all about covenant. So, what is the Hebraic concept of a covenant? In the Hebrew, it would be called a brit. A brit consists not just of promises, but solemn and irrevocable oaths confirmed by ceremonial acts and tokens designed to function as down payments on the covenant undertakings of each party. A brit with Yehovah means we do not have to guess or wonder about where our relationship with him stands. A brit with Yehovah means we do not have to speculate about what his thoughts towards us are, what he expects from us, or what his purpose is in giving us life and daily bread. Brit with Yehovah means we have the strongest possible covenant partner, the creator of the universe himself. Brit with Yehovah means that the Almighty One has bound himself to protect and defend us against every opponent, to communicate his will and his counsel to us, to teach and train us even disciplining us as necessary in order that we might become flesh and blood representatives of his kingdom on earth. Brit with Yehovah means he gets a people who will merely shema his voice and shema and asar his words and do only what they see him doing, rather than a people who do great works that they think will impress him, earn his favor, and curry his blessing. Chapter 15. After these things, the word of the Lord came to Abraham in a vision, saying, "Fear not, Abraham, I am thy shield and thy exceeding great reward." That suggests, doesn't it, that Abraham was kind of like a little bit fearful. I mean, he'd just been in a big war. I mean, it, must have had an effect on him. The whole fact of his life, and he's parting from Lot and all these things that are going on in his life. He's probably like wondering what's going on. It's kind of not what I was expecting. Well, the Lord says, "Fear not." And he says, "I am thy shield." And the shield, it is a noun form of the Hebrew verb root nagan. It means to surround in order to defend and protect. He's saying, I'm with you, Abraham. And he says, "I'm your exceeding great reward." He's just turned down a load of wealth, hasn't he? And the Lord says, "No, something much better for you." And Abraham said, "Lord God, what wilt thou give me, seeing I go childless, and the steward of my house is this Eliezer of Damascus?" And Abraham said, "Behold, to me thou hast given no seed, and lo, one born in mine house is mine heir." So Eliezer of Damascus was Abraham's chief assistant, his right-hand man. He was a good man, but he was not a son to Abraham. And he's like, "You promised me, let me seed, Lord, what's going on?" He says, "Look, you've given me no offspring." Abraham's bold honesty before Yehovah is worthy of our imitation. Instead of bottling up his feelings, he lays them out before Yehovah. Abraham wants to believe and is looking to Yehovah to strengthen his faith. He's not doubting the Lord, he's just saying, "What's going on, Lord?" Behold, the word of the Lord came to him, saying, "This shall not be thine heir, but he that shall come forth out of thine own bowels shall be thine heir." He reassures him again. And he brought him forth abroad, and he said, "Look now towards the heaven, and tell the stars, if thou be able to number them." And he said unto them, "So shall thy seed be." And he believed in the Lord, and he counted it to him for righteousness. And Gordon Welling notes that the form of aman, or believe, used here, he writes, probably indicates repeated or continuing action. Faith was Abraham's normal response. In short, Abraham was a person of faith. It was what defined him. It wasn't some one-off action. Galatians 3:7. Know then that it is those of faith who are the sons of Abraham. He said to him, "I am the Lord that brought thee out of Ur of the Chaldees to give thee this land to inherit it." And he said, "Lord God, whereby shall I know that I shall inherit it?" Okay, so he's kind of bartering with the Lord again, saying, well, that's great, but he's not expressing doubt of Yehovah or experiencing a crisis of faith. Abraham knows, you see, that when he cuts a brit, a covenant with the Lord, he will receive from Yehovah a down payment on the promises Yehovah has been making. And he said to him, "Take an heifer of 3 years old, and a she-goat of 3 years old, and a ram of 3 years old, and a turtle dove, and a young pigeon." And he took unto him all these, and he divided them in the midst. He laid each piece one against another, but the birds divided he not. And when the fowls came down upon the carcasses, Abraham drove them away. So some have taught that Abraham was merely a passive participant in the Brit of chapter 15. That is true to a point, but the reality is Abraham had to do a lot of things to make this happen. Richard Booker gives his insights into the covenant process. He said the parties would take an animal, cut it down, half down the middle, and split it in two. The two bloody halves would be separated and laid aside, after which each party would walk through the two halves. The ceremony represents each party giving up his rights to his own life, dying to self and beginning a new walk with one's new covenant partner to death. Each half of the animal represents one of the covenant parties. By walking through the middle, each party was saying, "God, do so to me and more if I ever try to break the covenant. Just split me right down the middle and feed me to the vultures, because I have tried to break the most sacred of all compacts." A covenant was a big deal to these people. And Yehovah shows Abraham the future. And when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abraham, and lo, an horror of great darkness fell upon him. And he said to Abraham, know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterward they shall come out with great substance. And thou shalt go to thy fathers in peace, thou shalt be buried in a good old age. So he's telling them about the fact that they're going to go to Egypt. But in the 4th generation they shall come hither again, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full. So a great darkness fell on them. Is this the same kind of darkness that fell on the land of Egypt, I wonder? In Exodus 10 it says, and Jehovah said to Moshe, stretch out thine hand towards the heaven, that there may be darkness over the land of Egypt, even darkness which may be felt. And Moshe stretched forth his hand toward the heaven, and there was a thick darkness in all the land of Egypt 3 days. And please bear in mind that this is something that we read about a bit in Scripture. Jehovah putting people in a deep sleep. He did it with Adam, and he took Eve from Abraham's side. And another example was David. So David took the spear and the jar of water from Saul's head, and they went away. No man saw it or knew it, nor did any awake, for they were all asleep, because a deep sleep from Jehovah had fallen upon them. And this is where Abraham finds himself. So it came to pass that when the sun went down and it was dark, behold, a smoking furnace and a burning lamp that passed between those pieces. In the same day, please make note of that, the Lord made a covenant with Abraham, saying, unto thy seed have I given this land, from the river of Egypt unto the great river, the river Euphrates. The Kenites, the Kenizzites, and the Cadmonites, the Hittites, and the Perizzites, and the Rephaims, and the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Girgashites, and the Jebusites. So when Abraham was ready, the covenant was made. And when people teach that this was an unconditional covenant, they are incorrect. Abraham knew exactly what was expected of him. Also, the teaching that he was asleep when Jehovah made the covenant is incorrect. It says he made the covenant the same day as Abraham fell into the deep sleep or trance, not during it. The second element of the story, often cited as evidence of an unmerited covenant, is the unilateral confirmation ritual described. So in the covenant making process, the two of them would walk between the animals, but we just see this one torch passing through. So they say, oh, well, that means that Abraham, he didn't have to do anything for this covenant. This implies that Abraham's preceding faithfulness played no part. But Jameson, Fawcett and Brown succinctly give the ritual its proper historic significance. And they say, the patriarch did not pass between the sacrifice, and the reason was that in this transaction he was bound to nothing. He'd asked a sign, and God was pleased to give him a sign, by which, according to Eastern ideas, he bound himself. The ritual answers Abraham's question in verse 8 by proclaiming the certainty of the promise. When he says, oh Lord, how will you make sure that I know this? This was what this was all about. The basis for the promise is not the issue. This was just the Lord saying, yeah, this is a certainty. So ask yourself, was it conditional or unconditional? All the way through when the Lord calls him, it's conditional. The Lord said to Abraham, get thee out of thy country, from thy kindred, thy father's house, and I'll make a great nation. I'll bless thee and make thy name great. I will bless them that bless thee and curse them that curse thee. But please notice, it was conditional. Get out. Victor Hamilton declares, he says the structure in 12:1-2 there is imperative followed by imperfects with the vav consecutive, and the imperfect express intention. God's intention to bless Abraham and make him a great nation is predicated upon his obedience to the divine word to leave Again, is it conditional or unconditional? When Abraham was 99 years old, Jehovah appeared to Abraham and said to him, I am God Almighty, walk before me and be blameless, that I may make my covenant between me and you and may multiply you greatly. So he's told, walk before me and be blameless so that I can make this covenant between me and you. Again, is it conditional or unconditional? The angel of Jehovah called to Abraham out of the heaven the second time and said, by myself have I sworn, says Jehovah, for because thou hast done this thing and hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, that in blessing I will bless thee, and in multiplying I will multiply thy seed as the stars of the heaven, and as the sand which is upon the seashore, and thy seed shall possess the gate of his enemies. And in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, because thou hast shemad my voice. Conditional or unconditional? I will make thy seed to multiply as the stars of heaven, and will give thy seed all these countries, and in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed. Because that Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws. People are taught that this is an unconditional offer, that he promised the land to Abraham's seed, and then they make this correlation between Abraham's seed and the state of Israel and say, it's what the Lord promised. If you want an in-depth look at who Abraham's seed actually are, then last year in this Torah portion, JP went into it in some depth. Please note that a covenant is a two-way thing. One example we all understand is a marriage. The covenant we have with Yehovah is a betrothal covenant. 2 Corinthians 11. I feel divine jealousy for you, since I betrothed you to one husband, to present you as a pure virgin to Christ. In chapter 16, in the covenant, real life choices have real life consequences. Doing what seems right to man or following our heart instead of following Yehovah's instructions is never going to end well for us, for those we love, or for the world. Okay, it says, now Sarai, Abraham's wife, bare him no children, and she had an handmaid, an Egyptian, whose name was Hagar, which is kind of like in Hebrew means like the stranger. And Sarai said unto Abraham, behold, now the Lord hath restrained me from bearing. I pray thee, go in unto my maid, it may be that I may obtain children by her. And Abraham hearkened to the voice of Sarai. It's interesting, isn't it? Because the voice we're supposed to hearken to was the voice of Yehovah. Sarai, Abraham's wife, took Hagar and her maid, the Egyptian, after Abraham had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan, and gave her to her husband Abraham to be his wife. This makes sense to man, but it was not Yehovah's plan. In the land of Mesopotamia, from which Abraham and Sarai had grown up, it was completely acceptable if a married woman was incapable of bearing children to continue the line of her husband. The woman was to give her maidservant to her husband as a second wife in order to assure the man an heir. Thereafter, if she chose, she could adopt the handmaid's child as her own. This was kind of a normal thing that was done in their day. So it's not like completely abstract. And lots of the times when people go after man's ideas and not after Yehovah's ideas, they're doing what is perfectly acceptable to the people of the day. That's the same. That was true then and it's true now. So it says, after Abraham dwelt 10 years in the land, it had been more than 10 years since the promise was made regarding Abraham's descendants. By most accounts, 10 years seems like a long time to wait for the promise of Yehovah. It puts it in perspective, really, doesn't it? And people get all, 10 years? The Lord's come to him and promised him. Yep, don't worry, out of your own bowels, it's all good. 10 years later, he's getting older and older. He's watching his wife getting older and older, and he's like, what's going on? The long waiting for the promise discouraged them and made them vulnerable to acting in the flesh. Yet, even after this, it would still be more than 13 years until the child of promise came. So he thought he'd waited a long time then, 10 years. It's going to be another 13 years before the Lord actually fulfills his promise. When we impatiently try to help Yehovah out in the flesh, it accomplishes nothing. Jacob had to live as an exile for 25 years because he thought he had to help Yehovah out to get his father's blessing. It is much better to receive Yehovah's help than to try and help him out in the flesh. It says he went into Hagar, she conceived, and when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. So this proved beyond all doubt that the problem was in Sarai, not in Abraham. And it would also make people think Hagar was more of a woman and more blessed than Sarai. In their culture, that's how it would have seemed. And it says there, doesn't it, her mistress was despised in her eyes. She probably got a little bit up herself and a bit haughty. And Sarai said unto Abraham, my wrong be upon thee, I have given my maid into thy bosom. And when she saw that she had conceived, I was despised in her eyes. The Lord judged between me and thee. What a mess. All in all, it is much easier to live life trusting in Yehovah. He wants to spare us from all these difficulties. And if we just hearken to his voice and walk according to his ways, things would be much simpler. But Abraham said unto Sarai, behold, thy maid is in thine hand, do to her as it pleases thee. And when Sarai dealt hardly with her, she fled from her face. And And the angel of the Lord found her by a fountain of water in the wilderness, by the fountain in the way to Shur. And he said to Hagar, Sarai's maid, whence comest thou, and whither wilt thou go? And she said, I flee from the face of my mistress, Sarai. The angel of the Lord said to her, return to thy mistress and submit thyself unto her hands. The angel of the Lord said to her, I will multiply thy seed exceedingly, that it shall not be numbered for multitude. So the Lord says here, he says, okay, this isn't great, I understand, but go back. And then he reassures her that it will be well with her. The angel of the Lord said to her, behold, thou art with a child and shalt bear a son, and thou shalt call his name Ishmael, because the Lord has heard thy affliction. Ishmael is the first man in the Bible to receive his name before he was born. It's interesting, isn't it? And then it says, and he will be a wild man, his hand will be against every man, and every man's hand against him, and he shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren. I wonder how she felt when she got told that. You'll be what? You'll be a wild, did you say wild man? So she called the name of Jehovah, who spoke to her, you are God of seeing. For she said, truly here I have seen him who looks after me. Therefore the well was called Beer Lahai Roy, and it lies between Kadesh and Bered. Now we know that Hagar did return, and she must have told the whole story to Abraham and Sarai. And Abraham named the child Ishmael, just as instructed in the meeting with the angel of Jehovah that Hagar described. And there we see it in verse 15. Hagar bare Abraham a son, and Abraham called his name, which Hagar bare, Ishmael. So she must have told him, no, we've got to call him Ishmael. And Abraham was 86 years old when Hagar bare Ishmael to him, 86. And yet, he still won't get the child of promise for another 13 years. Oh, chapter 17. And when Abraham was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to Abraham and said unto him, I am the Almighty God, walk before me and be perfect. I will make thy covenant between me and thee, and will multiply thee exceedingly. And Abraham fell on his face, and God talked with him, saying, as for me, behold, my covenant is with thee, and thou shalt be a father of many nations. Neither shall thy name be any more Abraham, but thy name shall be Abraham, for a father of many nations have I made thee. Abraham means exalted father. Abraham means father. Abraham means father of many nations. It's got a hay in it. Significance of the hay is that is added to Abraham's name. The Hebrew letter hay pictures the window or opening of a Middle Eastern shepherd's tent. It is the door of both revelation and inspiration. I just want it to sink into people there as well that he's gone all this time without the Lord coming to speak with him. And people get discouraged and disheartened, don't they? Like, and they feel like, oh, the Lord hasn't spoke to me in ages. This is the man he's waiting on this promise of the Lord. He's 99. And when the Lord comes to him, I just think you should bear it in mind. If you ever get impatient and wonder, why isn't the Lord doing what I want him to do, and why isn't this happening and this and the other? This man Abraham is not the same man who left Haran, or who got kicked out of Egypt, or who parted ways with Lot, or who pursued and fought against the strongest army of the most powerful nations of the world, or who insisted on having a son of his own flesh, even if it meant mingling his seed with an Egyptian handmaid. He's now 99. And he will never be the same man again, for Jehovah goes on to declare over him the following prophetic destiny. He says, I'll make thee exceedingly fruitful, and I'll make nations of thee, and kings shall come out of thee. I will establish my covenant between me and thee, and thy seed after thee, and their generations, for an everlasting covenant, to be a God unto thee, and to thy seed after thee. And we're told this in 1 Chronicles 16. Be ye mindful always of this covenant, the word which he commanded to 1,000 generations, even of the covenant which he made with Abraham, and of his oath unto Isaac. And he hath confirmed the same to Jacob for a law, and to Israel for an everlasting covenant. Bear in mind who Israel are. Israel are those who choose to walk in Jehovah's ways and hearken to his voice. And I will give unto thee and to thy seed after thee the land wherein thou art a stranger, all the land of Canaan for an everlasting possession, and I will be their God. God said unto Abraham, thou shalt keep my covenant therefore, thou and thy seed after thee in their generations. This is my covenant which you should keep between me and you and thy seed after thee every man-child among you shall be circumcised. And you shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be as a token of the covenant between me and you. Question: who does this covenant of circumcision apply to? It applies to Abraham and his seed. So who is Abraham's seed? Is it this lot? Is it this lot? Well, who does he keep covenant with? I pray to Jehovah my God, I make confession saying, O Lord, the great and awesome God who keeps covenant and steadfast love with those who love him and keep his commandments. We read this earlier. And from it we concluded, Jehovah keeps covenant with those who keep his commandments. It is these people who love him. And these are the ones that Jehovah says he knows. These are the children of the promise. Galatians 3:29, if you be Christ's, then you are Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise. And this covenant is between Jehovah and Abraham's seed forever. Not everyone that says unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that does the will of my Father which is in heaven. Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name, and in thy name cast out devils, and done many wonderful works? And I will profess to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you that work iniquity, anomia, without law, Torahlessness. 1 Corinthians 8:3, if anyone loves God, he is known by God. He doesn't know these people. I never knew you. You didn't love me, is what he's saying. If you love me, you will keep my commandments. He makes it so clear and plain. This is the love of God, that we keep his commandments, and his commandments are not burdensome. And then these people. Whosoever denies the Son, the same hath not the Father. He that acknowledges the Son hath the Father also. Okay. For those who find it difficult to let go of the idea that all these people in the picture there and those who are like them are the seed of Abraham, who hold on to the lies of the forefathers, then I suggest that you would watch this teaching. It's the short teaching that's explained in more detail in this teaching, and also it might be worth your while checking out this teaching. And again, I'll say, last year JP went into the idea of who Abraham's seed truly are in Lech from last year, and it's worth watching. And he that is 8 days old shall be circumcised among you, every man child in your generations, he that is born in the house or bought with money of any stranger which is not of thy seed. This is a covenant between Jehovah and his people. And if anybody here has questions about, I don't know what circumcision stands for today, look what it says in the New Testament and this, that and the other, I'm really not sure. Again, go back to JP's teaching last year. I watched it and skimmed through it so that I wouldn't repeat the same things. And I'm not going to go into depth because he went into depth. All the misunderstandings in the New Testament about circumcision, the things where it says, and circumcision means nothing and all this. He goes into detail on it all and explains it all. Of course, the New Testament does not contradict what it says in the Old Testament because the Word of God is one. So if you've got any doubts whatsoever, check the teaching out and it will all become extremely clear. Oh yeah, before we move on, that was an amazing day when Caleb got circumcised on the 8th day. That was just an amazing day. That was... Doing what is in the Word, there's something really incredible about it. It was a real amazing thing to be a part of. I felt really blessed in such a kind of like understated but really heavy, deep, brilliant way. It was just, this is great. He that is born in thy house and he that is bought with thy money must needs be circumcised, and my covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. And the uncircumcised man-child, whose flesh of his foreskin is not circumcised, that soul shall be cut off from his people. He hath broken my covenant. And God said unto Abraham, as for Sarai, which means princess, thy wife, thou shalt not call her name Sarai, but Sarah, which means noble woman, shall be her name. Again, we can see the addition of a hey, revelation and inspiration it represents. And I will bless her and give thee a son also of her. Yea, I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations. Kings of people shall be of her. And this is good. Abraham fell on his face and he laughed. It's not a laugh of doubt. This is a laugh of, wow, seriously, wow, you're amazing. Wow, this is going to be nuts. And he said in his heart, shall a child be born unto him that is 100 years old, and shall Sarah that is 19 years old bear? And Abraham said unto God, oh, that Ishmael might live before thee. God said, Sarah thy wife shall bear thee a son indeed. Thou shalt call his name Isaac, and I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his seed after him. The name Yitzhak actually means he will laugh. And as for Ishmael, whose name means God hears, I have heard thee. Behold, I have blessed him, and I will make him fruitful, and will multiply him exceedingly. 12 princes shall he beget, and I will make him a great nation. Isn't that mad the way it mirrors Jacob and the 12 tribes of Israel? My covenant will I establish with Isaac, which Sarah shall bear unto thee at this set time in the next year. Genesis 17. When he had finished talking with him, God went up from Abraham. And we looked at this before. If you are somebody who has not been circumcised, then bear this in mind. What did Abraham do? Did he say, ooh, one step at a time? Did he wonder how he could get out of it? No, I'm not into this. No. He took Ishmael his son and all those born in his house or bought with his money, every male among the men of Abraham's house. He circumcised the flesh of their foreskins that very day, as God had said to him. I remember when me and JP first realized about circumcision, and it was like, wow, this is part of what we've got to do. And then he got an appointment, and then it was something was come up where there was like a cancellation, and it was like, can you come in the next day or two, or whatever it was, tomorrow? And he's like, yeah. And I'm thinking, wow, this is amazing. But part of me was also thinking, I wanted to be first. I was jealous of him. I was like, oh, this is. And then he comes out and he's circumcised. I'm thinking, I want to be circumcised. And I think James was the same. He was like, well, this is not a case of I want to get out of it, or, oh Lord, surely there's no. If it's in the Word, it should be your heart's desire to do it. That very day, as God had said to him. And Abraham was 99 years old, and he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. So don't use age as an excuse to not do it. And Ishmael, his son, was 13 years old, and he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. The very day, Abraham and his son Ishmael were circumcised, and all the men of his house, those born in the house and those bought with money from a foreigner, were circumcised with him. And ask yourself, are you the seed of Abraham? My advice to anyone who hasn't already done so. I've mentioned this before. I've used this slide before. There you go. And that was me just before I went in. Put on the paper underpants. And that resonated with the chap who sent me this. His name's Distant. I hope I've said his name right. And I always appreciate this. If you're out there and you still watch the teachings, you sending me that really, really blessed me and tickled me. From paper underpants to scalpel. Faith, obedience, surrender. James 2. What good is it, my brothers, if someone says he has faith but does not have works? Can that faith save him? If a brother or sister is poorly clothed and lacking in daily food, and one of you says to him, go in peace, be warmed and filled, without giving them the things needed for the body, what good is that? So also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. But someone will say, you have faith and I have works. He says, show me your faith apart from your works, and I will show you my faith by my works. You believe that God is one, you do well. Even the demons believe and shudder. Do you want to be shown, you foolish person, the faith apart from works is useless? This whole idea of believing, we looked at it before. Whoever believes in him should not perish but have eternal life. faith, obedience, surrender. We see the connection in John 3:36. Whoever believes in the Son has eternal life. Whoever does not obey the Son shall not see life. Was not Abraham our father justified by works when he offered up his son Isaac on the altar? You see that faith was active along with his works, and faith was completed by his works. And the scripture was fulfilled that says, Abraham believed God, and it was counted to him as righteousness, and he was called a friend of God. You see that a person is justified by works and not by faith alone. What does he mean by this? Faith leads to works. Do you believe Yehovah to be who he says he is? Then you will do what it is that he tells you to do. Abraham's faith was very much alive, and he obeyed that very day. What about you? How do you respond to Yehovah's word? Next week we will see that his obedience is followed in Torah by an encounter with Yehovah. And JP will pick that up. As is often the case for all of us, it says, draw near to the Lord and he will draw near to you. So there we have it. We've been introduced to Abraham. Let us learn from him. He disentangled from all association that culled his way of thinking. And he trusted Yehovah. Let's leave behind the lies of our forefathers. Let's part ways with those who know Yehovah but are too interested in the things of this world, those who are on a different path to us. Those that are interested in the ways of man, the thinking of man, and not interested in the words of Yehovah, the words of life. Let us learn that it is not good to do things in our own strength and in our timing, but rather let us trust in our God and in his plan for our lives and in his timing. Patient endurance. Let us take the word of God and allow it to transform us into people of faith. Let's be like Abraham and hear and obey the voice of Yehovah, that we might walk in covenant with the Creator of all things. When Yehovah made the promise to Abraham that he would make him a great nation, Abraham probably had no idea that the plan for this nation was to become a special treasure and a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. This is the nation that the Lord was talking about. Exodus 19, now therefore, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, then you shall be a special treasure, a kingdom of priests, a kingdom of people who represent me, and a holy nation, a people set apart and different from the rest of the world, people who leave behind all the rubbish of the world. These are the words which you shall speak to the children of Israel. He's known as the father of our faith because where others lacked, he was steadfast and he endured. And the God of Abraham is your God. He wants you to have steadfastness. It's the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. He wants you to have endurance. We rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance. Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds, and rejoice. The God of Abraham is your God. And if you truly shema his voice, he calls you his friend. Give thanks to the Father who has qualified you to share in the inheritance of the saints in light. Rejoice in hope, be patient in tribulation, and be constant in prayer. And give thanks in all circumstances, for this is the will of God in Yeshua HaMashiach for you. Amen. So we pray. Heavenly Father, I pray for all the people who are going through trials and tests. I pray that your word, Lord, will comfort them, and it will reassure them. Thank you, Lord, that you are there for us even when we don't know it. That you have all matters in hand for those who truly love you, who walk in your ways. Thank you, Lord, for letting us learn about Abraham. Thank you for what it teaches us about how we walk with you. Thank you for the promises that you made to him. Thank you that we are part of that promise, Lord. What an incredible thing. Lord, we're connected to him, Lord, and that's amazing to me. You have all things in hand, Lord. You are amazing. Oh, that we would trust you. That we would learn to rejoice, even in our suffering and in the trials that we face. Thank you, Lord, for your great love towards us, for your great provision. Thank you, Lord, that we can trust in you because you're sovereign over all things. And you love us. You truly love us. Lord, I pray a blessing on everybody who hears this teaching. That they'd be reassured that you are Jehovah, the God of Abraham. Great and mighty God. Amen.